evening for all of us. And my name is Frank Williams. I'm director of the Youth Bureau, and I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. This evening's discussion really is about how do we create opportunity and success with our young people. Many of you know we have more programs than most municipalities. In fact, we have close to 60 programs. They're mostly free, and we're open 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And our discussion this evening is how do we inspire, motivate our young people to be their best self in and out of school? We have all of these wonderful programs here at the Youth Bureau, but for whatever reasons, with respect to our Black young people, we seem to be not able to move the needle in a way that we have been able to do in the past. And really, that's what we're talking about today. How do we engage our parents? How do we help our young people succeed in and out of school? We have everything from an aviation academy to leadership development to jobs for young people. We work with our business community. We have free SAT prep program. We have basically something for everyone. And we know that we've come out of a COVID and our young people are challenged with regards to just dealing with the issue of feeling good about themselves and their emotional impacts have been great, especially in the Black and Brown community. But we're here today because one, we want to maintain high standards. We believe that everyone can be successful, irregardless of where their station is in life. And so we have assembled a great panel of speakers to talk with our parents about how we reach a collective impact, how we help our young people take advantage of the services that the Youth Bureau, the Rec Department, the YMCA, the YWCA, all of our community service providers are youth service providers. And we know that we rise together and we fall together. And when our young people are not meeting the mark, it impacts all of us. So one is, I want to thank the mayor and the common council for funding all of our programs, providing these opportunities for our children and youth. It's especially important, and I want to thank the parents, the Black parents, and all of the parents who are here today to listen, to discuss with us how we can do better, how we can engage them and their children in their journey to being successful. So I want to introduce our mayor, and following our mayor, the mayor will introduce the chairman of our youth board and a member of our common council, Justin Bragg. Mayor Roach.
Thank you, Frank. It's my pleasure to be with you. I won't take up much time because I know that you have work to do here, but I really appreciate everyone who put this together. We are very proud in White Plains that the city, the churches, the nonprofits, and the school district all work together to try and make sure that our young people have as many options put in front of them as possible so that they can find what they love. And, I believe when a child finds something that they love to do, that it raises everything up in their lives. It gives them self-esteem and a purpose. And you see the results here in White Plains. It's tremendous. So it's an all-star lineup they have here tonight, both people that are local and people who are coming from other places. But I think it's a great opportunity for parents to get an idea of what's ahead of them and how to best to help get the best out of their young people. So with that, I'll introduce Justin Bragg, my friend, my colleague on the council, and the chair of the Plains Youth Bureau Board. Justin.
Thank you, Mayor Roach. Thank you, Frank Williams. I will keep my comments even shorter. My job is to thank people like Frank Williams and to thank Bhavna and to thank Gina and everyone at the Youth Bureau who worked so hard. This is a fantastic opportunity. What I love about the Youth Bureau is we're a home for everybody, no matter where you come from or what your background is, rich, poor, Black, white, brown. You're welcome. You're part of our family, and we want to help lift you up and make you better and give you great opportunities to do great things. And we have a lot of amazing staff. And tonight is actually something I'm very proud of, because the way you make yourself better in anything is by critically looking at yourself and seeing what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if we need a little bit of strength to help our African-American youth, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it. And we're going to figure out the way to engage as many kids as possible so that their dreams and aspirations can be fulfilled and so that they can build successful lives. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Mayor Roach. We appreciate both of you. And I want to begin now by introducing our panelists. I want to begin by introducing Dr. Alana Brown, that's with 2L.
Yeah.
Dr. Brown, just give a wave, and she's joining us. And Dr. Brown is Director of Nursing, and she's a part of the Youth Bureau, and she and her sister are products of the Youth Bureau. And we are just extremely happy at their success in life, and we're looking forward to hearing her presentation. Also, we have Professor Donnie Simmons, who runs the Black and Hispanic program at Westchester Community College. And Donnie is a resident of White Plains. His sons are part of White Plains, and he's an active member of the White Plains Youth Bureau staff. We also have Dr. Nicole Borkin, who's in Brooklyn, but she's also a product of the Youth Bureau, and she's a psychologist. And we're going to be talking about the emotional issues and challenges our young people face and are facing with regards to dealing with the issue of COVID, and how you move forward given the stresses and strains and anxiety, and even the issue of just feeling like you just don't feel good about where you are. Of course, we have Reverend Erwin Trollinger, who's the leader of the White Plains Ministers Fellowship Council and Vicinity. He's also the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church. And also, we also have Orrin Barrett, who's the CEO and president of Cool Nerd. Does a lot of work in terms of careers and employment and all of that, looking at where the jobs are. So he's going to be sharing that perspective with us. And then we have Chris Latimer. I'm not sure if Chris is here yet, but Chris is on the panel too. Chris is a product of the White Plains Youth Bureau, a resident of the city of White Plains, and he's the CEO of the African American Alliance, a clothing line that he does all over the country. So here, I guess I should start with Reverend Trollinger and our young people. So Reverend Trollinger, I want to start with you. We're talking about parent engagement, helping our children succeed to be their best. How are we doing? And what do we need to do?
Well, a good evening to everyone on Facebook, on Zoom, wherever you may be at. Unfortunately, the village has gone a little bit asleep, and we're not doing quite well, especially within the African American community. The White Plains Youth Bureau is one of the most fantastic organizations that has all kinds of gifts, programming, and opportunities for our young people within our city. Not only do they have programming, but they have projected excellence in regards to that nurturing element. For some strange reason, our parents have somewhat fallen asleep, and the African American, and Caribbean Afro part of our community of White Plains are not using the services like we should. So tonight, one of the things is we're really looking to learn some strategies that we can once again motivate. I grew up a couple of hours ago in the town of Greenburgh, Fairview Greenburgh, where we had at one time called the Youth Center. Then it became Fairview Greenburgh Community Center, now Theodore DeYoung Community Center. And I remember the engagement of growing up as a child, being at that center, from karate to pool to basketball. And for this nobody won't believe it, for this very shy, introverted young boy that never looked at nobody, never talked to nobody, was scared of everybody, and made a horrible basket one time, Professor Simmons, in the opposite team's basket. And when I made the basket, I just walked out of the gym, just kept walking, walked right into theater. And there I was. I found my element. Basketball wasn't it. Theater was. And bless God, it opened up this diction, it opened up this voice, it gave me confidence, what I needed. And that's what the Youth Bureau does, because A kid doesn't have to be good in athletics. There may be leadership skills. There may be something else that they're best qualified for. And so we have to move the needle towards our parents to understand that this particular organization is really not an organization. It's really an organism. It breathes, it has life, and it has a lot of people that are connected to it. So from the clergy aspect to the community engagement aspect, we need to really try to embrace the programming at the Youth Bureau and also get our parents to have a vested interest in their children's destiny and in their potential, because that's what makes all the difference in the world. Just lastly, if it wasn't for Theodore D. Young, if it wasn't for Jim Jones, and it wasn't for Mr. Washington, who was the theater director, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But it was caring adults that simply said, you're going to do it. And so we have to push it. We have to push it.
Professor Donnie Simmons, I know that you're a father and a father figure and an asset to the city of White Plains. And you heard Reverend Trollinger indicate that we're kind of falling short. We don't lack programs and resources in White Plains for kids. We have tons of programs. We have lots of things for young people to do. In fact, our staff work perhaps 7 days a week just to enrich the lives of our young people. But lately, however, we see a falling away. That's what Reverend Trollinger had stated. We've seen a falling away with our Black youth, our Black parents, enjoying these many, many services, which a lot of them are free. How do we recapture, or can we recapture that spirit of collective impact in our community with regards to our children, youth, and families?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm a native son of White Plains. I grew up in the projects of White Plains, 33 Fisher Avenue, apartment 3E, 7 deep. Lost mom at a very early age. I was in second grade going into third. My sisters had to step up the game, and they did. And my grandmother stepped up that game. So I come from a product, a heralded product in Winbrook that is to be lauded. But somehow we have to reconnect that storyline to the conditions we face today. And so in order to answer your question, Frank, can we make that reconnection? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It's a matter of strategy. So I'm going to use a football analogy, and then I'm going to use an educational one. So in the National Football League today, how coaches are coaching is not of the same paradigm of the past. The paradigm of the past was, you are going to adapt to our system, and if you don't, you're out. But there is so much shining, vivid talent in the NFL today, the kind of talent that can lead to Super Bowls, that they have done a perfect job at reorienting their paradigm. They are now adapting themselves to the talent. So I think if we can lend a similar approach where we are now a carrot stick for that talent, then I think they will come to us, because we will serve in their particular customized interest as opposed to the aggregate interest. So it's almost like an allergic reaction that young people are having to what's out there today, because there's a fight or flight reaction to what they see, what they hear, what they feel. And if they don't feel welcomed from their perspective, then they disengage. So let me use an educational narrative now. So researchers in the field, I'm sort of a neuroscience geek, understanding how the brain functions. And how the brain functions, particularly in terms of learning, is that if the brain is in a fight or flight situation, you cannot engage participation. You will have minimal participation. So we have to do our reconnaissance better. And we have to look at this from an entirely different framework. And I believe that we can, because the information and the data is here.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking forward to the day and the moment where we can re-engage using this real-time data in order to recapture the soul of the Black community in White Plains, but it can be done.
Thank you, Johnny. And we're going to open this up for parents at some point. That we want you to make sure that you weigh into this conversation. We want to make sure that we get your feedback in terms of what can we do better. We have two doctors who are part of our panel, and both of these young women, they grew up in the Youth Bureau, and they've gone on to have successful careers. We want to hear from Dr. Brown and Dr. Borkin. The issue that we're confronted with, the issue for you is that your parents were engaged with you. We know your mother and your father, both of you. So talk to us about your own story growing up in White Plains and taking advantage of the services, and what can we do? What do you think is the issue, the COVID? What do you see as the issue, and how can we overcome some of the challenges that we're facing? Dr. Brown, can you weigh in first?
Yes, well, I'll speak a little bit about my experience and my connection to the Youth Service Bureau during my adolescent years, which was just so instrumental to my growth in social development. You know, there was an invested interest in me. I had mentors. I had people who were interested in maximizing, optimizing my potential. And early on, you know, I learned and would later appreciate you know, this focus on the importance of hard work, setting high expectations for myself, high standards, all of which was very instrumental to my confidence, my self-esteem, my sense of purpose. And so, you know, my adolescent years was definitely a delicate time for me. And, you know, those who were, those at the Youth Service Bureau really helped me find my way. And to their credit, I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I work with children, adolescents, adults, families. I diagnose and treat mental health disorders. And so, you know, I just think in terms of where we are now with COVID, you know, it's hard not being able to socialize. It's hard not being able to commune, you know, the way we once were able to. And as far as, you know, overcoming that and other barriers, I think we have to really look at what the challenges are beyond COVID and, you know, address those things in order to really engage the parents as well as the children. As far as support is concerned from a parental perspective, I mean, I'm a mom. I have to say that, you know, both my parents were definitely involved. My mom was a single parent during my adolescent years, and the Youth Service Bureau served as an extension of help and support to her. And so that was an added benefit. So, you know, yes, we would like to see more of the parents involved. We want to learn what is it that we can do to be of greater help in helping them to help their children.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Dr. Borkin, you're a psychologist. Tell us a little bit what you, in terms of COVID, the emotion, the impact COVID has on communities, and especially communities of color. Can you talk a little bit about that perspective?
Yes, absolutely. And then just kind of for your first part. So yeah, I grew up in the Youth Bureau. Both my parents were very involved in my education, my social emotional development. My dad's on the call now. Yeah, just growing up and having that foundation in the home, but also having a village outside the home of people who were going to grow and develop me. So I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Brooklyn, and we know that as Black and Brown community, we are facing two pandemics, COVID and the height of the Black Lives Matter. So parents are stressed beyond belief and pulled in so many directions. The biggest thing about COVID, obviously, was just the uncertainty. Nobody knew what it was going to be, how long it was going to be, the insecurities, losing jobs and resources, and really that isolation, as Dr. Brown just mentioned, that really feeling like, how can I be connected when I'm dealing with my own emotional issues internally, and how can I reach out? I think Mr. Williams, as you had said earlier, you know, just really knowing yourself and just saying, this is overwhelming, this is too much, and being able to seek help. And if there's always somebody you can go to, I think the Youth Bureau is a great place to, if you're not sure where, you can ask somebody, and the Youth Bureau would be able to reach out that. And we know that for mental health, both for children and adults, being connected to someone or some organization is just talks about how the positive impacts on their social emotional development, their mental well-being, that having something that can boost their self-esteem and really find something to connect outside of themselves, and having a connection, even if it's virtually, but having that way to really connect on that level, because it is hard. Like I said, we know that the increase in mental health issues through COVID has exponentially, the rate of suicide has increased, anxiety, depression, and we know that it's not just unfortunately a short-term effect. We're going to have effects months from now, years down the line, the effects of COVID, and like I said, the height of the Black Lives Matter impacting the Black and Brown community disproportionately. So finding places that where you connect and really just saying, I can't do this myself, and having ways that you can connect if you can't find that within your family. I know I'm widely appreciative that I have both my parents who are in the home, like I said, on me academically, educationally, even along with my sports, just making sure that I had a balance all around. So that's important. But if you can't have it in the home, there's definitely organizations like the Youth Bureau that can do that for you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Bork. And Brother Orange, I know that Brother Orange, he's been really involved with the career pathways, helping to connect employers to young adults, young people looking for careers, and talk a little bit about the importance of young people planning for the future, having career goals, and talk a little bit about what corporations, businesses are looking for in terms of the character and quality of their workforce, Brother Orange.
Okay, hello everyone. Seem like many here are a product of the Youth Bureau. I met Mr. Williams a few years ago and just made an immediate connection. So though I'm not a product, I will definitely say that I hope to be more connected with you as time goes on. Here's what I have to say, right? Before I start to speak on the employers and the situation, I'd like to just paint the reality of what's going on, and the reason why we're doing what we're doing with Cool Nerd. In 2017, I read a report that called The Road to Wealth, and it spoke on, by 2053, the net worth of Blacks in America will be zero, right? So 2053, it will be zero, and that's pre-COVID. Now, imagine with COVID and the types of jobs that you tend to have that Black and Latinx work were decimated. That number, I'm assuming when the research comes out after COVID has settled down, I'm assuming it will be in the 40s, that the net worth. And for those who doesn't understand what net worth is, if you take all of your assets, everything you own, and you sold them off, and you basically said, okay, how much capital we have after selling off all of our assets and paying off all of our liability, how much cash you have. There was research that also came out that said in Boston, the net worth of whites is $247,000, while for Blacks in Boston it's $8. Again, sell off everything you own, pay off all your debt. Everyone's walking around with only $8. So when you see the situation of capital and ownership, is basically little to nothing. And by 2053, the median will be zero. Hence what's increasing. So I wanted to push this out to the parents to really understand, though this is a situation that we're having, here it is on the other side, you have employers that are saying, we cannot find workers. Variety of industry across the board are growing very fast and are saying we cannot find workers. What used to take an employer 4 months to find an employee is now taking them 9 months. They're saying these individuals are lacking skills. The education system are not producing and giving us the workers that we need. And what was shocking as we started to do more research was that we found that there were jobs that literally only took a 2-year degree, low liability, so you don't have to take out a lot of student loans, that can make you anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000. And that's what I said, okay, this is a disservice, because how is it that our parents do not know about these jobs so they can guide their kids to them? If you ask any parent now, what job or what you think you can do to make your kid successful, the first thing, go to college. The next thing, become a doctor or a lawyer. And let's not talk about the amount of debt that will increase to pursue those careers. And we're saying that there are careers out there that employers will take you before you graduate because they need you so badly, that will pay you $50,000 to $80,000 with little to no debt that can increase. So this is a situation that we're addressing. We're just trying to increase the awareness, and we're hoping that the school systems start to really implement awareness on jobs to address the issue that's happening in our country and increase and will increase productivity. So that's where I want to really bring to this forum to really make the parents understand the plethora. There's so many jobs out there and they cannot find qualified workers. And that's what we want to bring to everyone's attention.
Or just if you could, and then I'm going to come back to Donnie. Just give us a picture of jobs in the future. What will they look like?
Well, job in the future, definitely I would say of the industries that we looked at. So we already know automation is coming in, but everyone thinks automation is going to replace job versus automation enhancing jobs in a sense of complementing and helping, right? I told everyone, and I know we were having a conversation of even just commuting just to the airport from Westchester to Queens, right? The toll bridge gone, but automation's coming in. But there are people behind the automation that's working and keeping those going. So those jobs, we know automation will come in, but it will also need workers to service them, maintain them, run them. Other industries that are really growing that automation really won't take a place, healthcare is suffering. You can talk to White Plains hospitals, you can talk to any of them. One gentleman said to me that we're looking for, over the last 2 years, we've been searching for 7 imaging techs. That's whether X-ray or ultrasound techs. And these are jobs that pay 57 to 82,000. It's a 2-year program. And for the last 2 years, we've been looking for 7 workers and we cannot find them. We were able to only hire 1. And now all across New York and across the United States, this is the issue. So healthcare is still going to need hands-on workers, while we know other industries are going to get automated. And the last thing I'm going to say is, one report I read recently said that if we cannot find the people to fill these jobs, all it's going to do is accelerate automation to come in and replace human workers, because we as a company cannot suffer with our productivity. So if we had the workers, it wouldn't accelerate as much the automation to come in. And we also saw how COVID kind of played a role right now in the sense of pushing automation, but the workers are still needed across the board. So it's a complement of automation and such, but their jobs out there, their hands-on skills are needed.
Donnie, thank you, Oren. Donnie, what else can we do? You know, because you've been a part of the Youth Bureau, you know that we're here for our community, for our children. What else you heard what Oren indicated in terms of where the jobs are going to be in the future, right? Yeah. It used to be a time, and some of our parents can even weigh in this. You know, you go to school, you be a social worker, you be a teacher, an administrator, or, you know, you be a business leader. But our economy is changing. What else can we do to engage young people and parents to say, you know, we got to start planning right now. We got to do well in school right now, because what we do today is going to impact our future.
Well, it's interesting if we were to approach this issue singularly as one of engagement, right? So we have a number of people here in this session. I don't know how many young people are here, but if there were like 4 or 5 young people, and let's say we were all at a table and we were selling our wares, what would be an elevator pitch to get them instantly engaged? Instantly. One of the approaches that I use, particularly when I'm attempting to engage young minds in their own best benefit, in this case, as director of the Black and Hispanic Male Initiative at WCC, they're just walking by a table, they see my face, and they see a sign, and they see some brochures, and they go, yo, what's this? What's this about? I say, it's about you. And they look quizzically, well, how is it about me? I say, how would you like to leave WCC with a lot of cash? Like, if you could, would you? Yeah, man, yeah. I'm not coming at them from, hey, I'm Donnie Simmons, I'm the director of the, no. My thing is, I'm trying to get them to understand the cost benefit of associating with me. So I get right to the bottom line of it. Right to the bottom line of it. I think if we work in teams, it would be effective. Let's say we were doing outreach, and so we had a Trollinger, we had a Boykin, we had a Barrett, we had a Simmons, and brown. And we're coming hard. We're coming strong. We're coming holistically. We have mental health. We have health in general. We have economics. We have a spiritual leader, and we have an educator. Right? That holistic treatment, I think, is imperative when we begin looking at how do we customize our services to X population. So you got to have a sales pitch, right? Because what good is it? I used to sell papers knocking on doors, slamming doors. You know, there has to be some kind of sales pitch enough to engage. And so the parties that need to be engaged are both guardian/parent and student. There needs to be a total engagement process, because if they don't see the dividend behind what you're selling, they're going to continue to disengage.
Thank you, Donnie. I think we have Chris Latimer here. Chris, if you're here, just talk a little bit about your own story. And Chris is the father of 3 boys. Chris, are you on the Zoom link? Not yet. Dr. Nicole, the issue is, I know you're dealing with the emotion, the psychology, the hurt of folks, but you heard Oren talk about the fact that what we do now matters. Grades matters. Your self-concept matters. Your problem solving matters. How do we encourage the parents that you're working with and the parents that you know that are here in White Plains to don't quit, to stay in the race, to be hopeful, that whole hope thing? How do we engage our parents and say, listen, it may be dark right now in terms of your emotional feelings and your spirit. How do we help parents to keep hope alive?
Yes, and I think as Mr. Simmons just said, we have to have sort of a buy-in. I think about it like when I work with my patients and the families in therapy, it's a process. You know, we can talk about the here and now, but what are our short-term goals, and then what are our long-term goals? And there's steps along the way to make those long-term goals. Okay, you know, I do like when I say, even when I think about when I do treatment plans, we used to do them every 3 months. Now we do them once a year because of COVID. But it said, okay, so here we are now. What are our goals 3 months from now? What are the steps we're going to achieve? And yes, there may be some back steps here and there, but are we at the end of the day making steps too large, the larger goal? And then what is the end goal at the end? And can you see progress in that? So just saying, okay, yes, we might have had a bump in the road right now. This might be a hiccup or a step back, but we can recover. You have the skill sets, getting those foundational skills in place. So when something else comes up, that you have that set to say, okay, wait, I could deal with this in the past. It wasn't as big as I thought it was. I have those skills and those supports to work through it. So next time something comes up, I'm more prepared for it. And once again, I have this skill set, but just not always looking at the here and now, saying I'm working for something larger and bigger, and to really stay on the path of we're working for something to the greater good. And it may not seem like in the moment it's working, but when you look back over the time and say, well, look at all the things that you've achieved from now to looking backward. So really getting them to say it's a process. No, you know, just like whether it's physical therapy or mental health, like it talks about strengthening and working through that pain, and then figure out where can you come out on the other side of that. So just really having them say, I can stick with you now and I'm going to work with you, but really trusting the process is the bigger thing. Just really, like I said, trusting that overall process and the supports that they have.
Dr. Brown, we're talking about collective engagement. You know, our parents are struggling economically, socially, trying to put food on the table. But at the same time, they're responsible for their children, but they can't do it alone. And we know that it really does take a village. And you mentioned your involvement with the Youth Bureau and other community partners when you were young, and you came through that. But that whole thing is not where young people are. How do we maintain hope, and how do we, you know, take a step back and say we're here for you, and what do we need to do to kind of create perhaps a new paradigm for our children, youth, and families?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I think just, you know, showing that there's an invested interest in the parents, in the child. You know, support systems are really, really important. I had that one, you know, growing up. My sister had that growing up. We had both of our parents. We had community outlets. faith-based outlets, which are all part of the support system, and really just making use of that. You don't want to give up. I think it's important to identify what the child and what the parent can look forward to. Dr. Boykin mentioned goals. I think goal setting is really, really important, whether it be long-term or short-term, because it gives both parent and child something to look forward to, something to work toward. And so, installation of hope, community supports, an invested interest, and people who really care, not people who are just, I'm here today and, I'm not available to you tomorrow. Like people who are really interested and invested in the families, really goes a long way. And that's what a testament to where I am now, where my sister is because of people just like that who were available to us at the Youth Service Bureau.
Pastor Trana, you talk a little bit about in your own life, you are a mentor or a friend. You provide summer employment for young people at your church. You've kind of gotten involved in this work, this calling, where you meet young people where they are. Is enough people meeting our young people where they are, and how do we encourage others to meet young people where they are? I know you've been involved with foster care and employment, community-based programs. Talk a little bit about how do we encourage others in our community to be engaged in this work with our children and parents?
Well, I'm gonna say it like this. I got to use a theological term that I use. You have to have the special grace. You have to have grace to do it. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't have the ability to touch the lives of young people. Young people can tell a phony, smell a phony, detect a phony from a block away, from miles away. Mm-hmm. Children, especially, let me just deal with young men. For 17 years, I worked in the foster care system. When I came out of the foster care system, I became a foster parent for 10 years because of the fact of what I saw in the foster care system, and that there wasn't too many African-American men that were taking on young men. And then I went a step further. I took foster kids, males, from 14 to 21 because nobody wants them. They already have a sense of abandonment, rejection, and stuff like that. But there was a young man, unfortunately he passed. There was a young man that was in my house. He came to my house from FIT. He messed up at FIT. He was in foster care. They needed to put him somewhere. 21 years old, and he came to my house. And I just knew that the rules had to be changed in regards to him. And he came to my house, and I never made him go to church. Never made him go to church. He would stay home, do his schoolwork and stuff like that. But then one day he said he looked up, and I have a lot of art, and all my art are images of strong men or strong men with families. And he looked up and he said to me, when I got home, he said, you know what, I was real mad at God. And I figured out that God had an idea to put me in a house with a preacher, and this preacher doesn't preach to me, he just speaks to my well-being. And I looked up at all the art and I said, you know what, I need to go back to you, and I need to go back to you, God. Displaying the possibilities of young men. I'm excited by just saying that as well, because one of the young men that has been nurtured in the Youth Bureau, nurtured at Bethel, nurtured by me as a mentor, he's a candidate now to become a police officer in the city of White Plains. He had his interview, he's a candidate, and all of that is based upon that circle around him, And so I believe that young people need to know that somebody cares. Mm-hmm. They know that person is going the nth degree with them. Somebody said something and I thought about parents. Parents need to be motivated simultaneously with the young people as well. Because if we see an investment, we also have to invest in the parents. Encourage them, tell them it's okay that you don't know. You know, tell them what are the books. If they can't read the books, then you become the book and you read to them. You let them read you so that they can understand it can happen. On Wednesday of this week, myself and 2 other men of my church are taking a young man of my church to the Mario Cuomo Bridge. We're going there in the middle of it because you know what? He's smoking marijuana right now. He's ODing on it. And I walked the bridge the other last Tuesday. I said, "Ooh, this would be a great place for intervention right here at this bridge," because I know he's at a crossroads. I need him to see it. I need him to visualize it and let him understand that if you fall, look how far you gotta go. If you gotta walk this bridge, you still gotta walk it, you know? So parents also, I always say that sooner or later, you're gonna be engaged with your kid. You know, it's either gonna be at graduation or it's gonna be in a courthouse. Let's choose the graduation place, you know? Let's choose something that's gonna make. And then lastly, I wanna say like this, every kid belongs to us. Now, I think I'm just a little bit older than Professor Simmons, just a little bit older, just a little bit. Brother Omar, you don't count. I know you don't count. You probably was born under Carter administration, so you probably don't know nothing about this. But back in the day, everybody was responsible for us. Everybody could speak to us. Everybody could tell us something about ourselves. I was a coordinator for the Million Man March. I took 1,500 brothers from Long Island, from Nassau, and Suffolk and Queens, you know, and when we came home, we did a lot of things, but the greatest thing I never forget, group of kids were coming home from school, and one of the boys on the way on the street, a little short distance from him, knocked down the garbage can and all the garbage came out. I yelled, pick it up now. And you know what he did? He picked it up. He picked it up because he heard the voice of someone who cared about the community, not someone who's going to beat him down. So one of the fellows said, do you know him? I said, no, I don't know him. I really didn't know him, but I knew that he was now littering his community. And I needed him to understand that somebody was watching. We've got to be out there acting. Frank, I tell Frank all the time, I get upset when I see young men walk past me and I don't know them. Sometimes I get so caught up in the building of the church, I get frustrated because my first ministry is with young people. So we need to empower and charge and inspire not only the kids, but the parents as well, and get them to understand that the value of your children lies in the worth that you speak to them. You know, one of the young girls of the church said it on Sunday. She says, Pastor always calls us prince and princesses because he sees the value that's inside of us. I never said that, but they recognized just by me saying prince and princess, they knew that I consider them as valuable. We've got to do that. There are sacred responsibilities. They really are.
Thank you, Reverend Trollinger. And you know, you said something back in the day. All of the children belong to all of us, right? And that was really the truth. We have Chris Latimer here. Chris, you have some dynamic young people, and talk a little bit about how you see this issue of parent engagement, parent participation, young people involved in productive, constructive programs and opportunities. You've been able to take your son and you've been able to push them in the direction you want them to go. Talk a little bit about your own story.
Oh, how's everybody doing? Sorry for the delay. I'm glad to be here. Wow. So I think the real opportunity is that the kids now are sponges. The problem is, I guess, are we putting water in them? I think that's kind of a big issue. And kind of what I've been able to do with my sons are just actually really this to add oil to the squeaky wheel. You know, I had one of my sons that was in school 2, 3 years. He's a great kid. All his teachers love him, but they just let him sit in school and he did no work. And they wouldn't send him to detention or anything. And I was just kind of stuck. So I went and met with the guidance counselors, and I gave it another year and another year. And by the time he got to the high school, halfway through his freshman year, I was like, no more. So I sent him to military school, because as a parent, what I knew was it was going to take me 18 months to reset him. He doesn't live with me. So I knew it was going to take that type of investment of my time to reset him. And it was at an interesting time, a new business opportunity for me. So I had to make a decision. And it was one of the best decisions I made in my life, because I was able to send him to military school and micromanage him. So I was able to remove him from a lot of the acceptance that he got in White Plains and put him in a situation where there was strict rules, there were repercussions for his actions. You know, there was therapists on campus, something he never experienced. And I kind of segued the therapist in as just a friend you could talk to. But, you know, I was telling Frank, you know, the problem with these kids is that we instill a lot of lessons in them, and sometimes we tell them what we want, but they've got 3 million delinquents in their pocket, in their phone, 3 million delinquents, teaching them how not to act like you want them to act every day. And I felt that it was very refreshing that I could kind of remove that from my son when he went to military school. And, you know, I give all the credit to him because he put in the work. Like, as there was a moment, I think, where he just understood, like, listen, dad loves me. What I'm doing is no good, and I'm wasting brain cells. And, you know, he did 2 years in military school. That's all he needed, really. Came back to White Plains. Now he's at Stepinac. And he has the trust of his family again, which is so important. Like, when he goes to school, we trust him. We trust that he's doing the right thing. He's going to do the right thing. You know, military school is a little extreme, but it's kind of what I had to do. And then my oldest son, who's a junior on paper, but a sophomore at Howard University, same with him. You know, he went to the good prep schools and things like that, but I don't think he was getting the lessons that he needed to walk around America as an African-American young male. And we always want the best for our kids, but at the same time, I think reality is very important. Like what was said earlier, I meet my kids at their level. You know, I listen to not all the music, but some of the music that they listen to. You know, I like to go to the stores. I'm in fashion, so I like to go to the stores they shop at. And I have the conversations, but I try to not come from a place of where I'm telling them what to do. There was that moment, there were those times, but now, you know, I was telling my son yesterday, like, you have to understand the great thing about your life right now, you know, and pardon my expression, but, you know, dad was an asshole because you were an asshole. So I had to be, and pardon me, Pastor, I had to be in your mind and in your head, and I had to be on top of you. I had to be a jail warden. But guess what? Now that you're handling your business, you're a partner in the law firm. I don't have to look over you anymore. You get the perks I get. If there's perks for the companies, there's perks for you. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, Frank, I seen the screen went black. So, you know, now that you're a partner in the firm, you know, you get the bonuses. You get to rock out. It's not just dad taking the trips, it's us taking the trips. And it was a lesson, you know, it required research. It required you know, my community, my Howard community, my White Plains community, my friends, and we had multiple discussions on our babies and kind of what we need to do. And it's all different. But that's why I think like the Youth Bureau is so important, because I think somewhere along the way, you know, in the city of White Plains, we've kind of forgot what an incredible crutch the Youth Service Bureau is. And I think, you know, and I could talk from my experiences, there was a time where, you know, the Youth Service Bureau was all we did after school, and we worked out, we did all the things, and we were in an environment where, you know, we needed some help, or, and I guess we listened a little bit more. Then there kind of came this moment where the Greenberg Center became it, you know, but then all kinds of different things. There were a ton of positive things over there, but then there were also like, you're kind of like a "you're not from Greenberg" vibe. And it took me in, you know, my young adult ages to realize what the Youth Service Bureau could do in the programs. And then, you know, my son that I sent to military school, part of our relationship of getting closer and me getting to that point and understanding what I had to do for him took place from me taking him to the Youth Service Bureau for boxing 3 times a week, because he had to get some discipline, you know, and the discipline was from the Sweet Arts, and I chose to use that program. And just it feels weird calling you Frank, so I'm going to say Mr. Williams. You know, when I sit down with Mr. Williams, he just tells me about the ton of programs that I had no idea. And it's crazy, they're still doing miraculous things, but we've got to carve out some time to see what's available. I think as African Americans in the city of White Plains, you know, we've kind of, you know, mentally separated ourselves. And don't get me wrong, there's been some reasons, you know, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., blah, 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 the list goes on and on and on, incarceration, blah, 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 you know, to separate ourselves. But we also have to look at people like Mr. Williams and Pastor Trollinger that are icons in the community, and find some time as parents to carve out and get their attention and talk to them, because they know everything that's going on, right? In a normal household right now, you know, 2-parent households working, you know, 140 hours in one way or the other. You know, a single parent is probably working about 70 hours. So who's raising the kids? So if you just carve a little time out and see what's out there and what's available out there, you know, it could change everything. And last thing I'll say is, as a member of the White Plains community, you know, how I was raised, living on Lexington Avenue at the Grant House, was when I walked down Lexington Avenue, everybody knew where I was supposed to be, what football team I played for, what time practice was, whose house I wasn't supposed to be at. And and it wasn't even about the lamp post going off and all that. It was just like, all right, well, this is what Lexington Avenue turns into at 8 o'clock. So you need to find your way to somebody's house. And all of those people and the Black businesses in those days, which are very critical and missing right now as well, that we could walk into and see our people exchanging money with our people and the dollars circulating in the community, you know, all of that stuff poured into me and made me the entrepreneur I am today. So I feel like, oh, you know, so Mr. Williams could call me at any time, you know, Pastor Trollinger could call me anytime, because I owe. And that's one of the main reasons why I came back home and got involved in youth football 12, 15 years ago. And I intend on staying here, is because I owe this community. And, you know, I'm not going to be living out in LA or Miami or Atlanta, somewhere else where I don't have a bond, but my roots are here. This is where they grew from.
Thank you, Chris. We want to open this up to our parents and to the participants this evening. We're saying taking charge of your child's education means taking charge of your child's future. We're going to start with Mrs. B. I know she had she wanted to raise a point, and if there's something you want to say, just, you know, raise your hand or hold your hand, and we want to hear from you, because we're at the point here in the city of White Plains where we don't lack services or resources, but we see a shift in our Black community. And, you know, education just doesn't end at the end of the school day. It goes on after school, in the evenings, and on the weekends. So, Mrs. B, let me hear from you.
Hi, Mr. Williams. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Okay, so I'm a teaching assistant for White Plains School District. And I also am a parent. And I brought this up in many meetings regarding making parents feel comfortable. Parents have to feel comfortable, especially minority parents, with people that look like them, for one, people that they can feel comfortable opening up to, and the school reaching out and helping them, asking them if they need help. Because, I work 2 jobs. My husband works, we're overwhelmed, so it feels comfortable knowing that you feel the support system, knowing that you can go and talk to your child's teacher and say, look, I need help with this, I need help with that. And they don't shun you or make you feel less than. And I think that's what's happening a lot within the community. The parents I do know that have grown up with me, I'm a product of White Plains School District. I graduated in 1998. I speak to them and tell them they are their kids' biggest advocate. So they have to be their kids' voice. They cannot depend on the school system to do it for them, because 9 times out of 10, it's not getting done. I see on a daily basis, and I think that we just need more help as a whole. We have to have people in the school that look like us. When I first started, I had Miss Havis as my principal. You had people that you could speak to, that you felt comfortable speaking with, that did not make you feel a certain way as a parent and as an employee. And I think that's where it starts. We have to do something to change the dynamics and making it 50-50%. Because, as an African American, they may not feel comfortable speaking to someone that they can't confide in and don't go through the certain struggles that we may go through as a whole community. So I think that's where it starts.
Thank you, Mrs. B. Anybody else want to make a comment on that? Ms. B was just talking, parents need to feel comfortable and have a sense of connection and belonging and partnership with the school district in order to get the kind of results that they want. Any other experiences or comments in that regard? Yes, Ms. Archer, I believe. You're muted.
Hi, good evening. My name's Gina Archer. Omar will be my husband, and I have 2 children, a 7th grader at Highlands and a 5th grader at MAS. And I also am an educator in a school district south of here. To your point, Professor Simmons, to your point, the person who spoke earlier, there's something to be said for going into a building or having your children taught by someone whose lived experience is closest to yours. My kids have had great teachers. I have no complaints about the teachers, but I can say that I saw a difference when in 3rd grade, my daughter had an African-American female teacher and my son had one in 5th grade. And they pushed them in a way that other teachers hadn't. They held them, they were like a second mom. And we appreciated that and see the difference that it makes. I have the privilege of sitting on the African American Diversity Committee, and we are working hard, partnering with the White Plains Central School District to recruit and retain African Americans. And we need the help. We need the help of the Youth Bureau. We need the help of organizations to get the word out so that we have folks who look like us coming to work in White Plains. And we need to create an atmosphere so that they stay and that they're promoted within. Gone are the days. I grew up in Virginia. My parents are both educators, and it was that village concept. I don't know that I see the village. I think we trust, we trust that everyone will do right by our kids. And I don't believe that to be the case. And I'm not limiting it to White Plains. I work in Pelham, and that's a whole different animal. But it's the same sentiment, and it's the same sentiment I hear from my Black and brown families in Pelham. And so this conversation is specific to White Plains, but it's a much larger issue. But in terms of what we can do, we all need to kind of stick together. We need to create that village as much as we can. But as someone who sits on interviewing and hiring committees in White Plains, would love, love, love to have more folks come through who look like me. Thank you.
How important it is to have images to our young people and to our parents, and Ms. Archer is just clearly you're on point with that. How important it is to have folk who are teaching our kids, who look like us, who nurture us, who help to elevate our self-worth and self-esteem, and who like Reverend Trollinger was saying earlier, you know, affirming to our young people, prince and princesses, and having that spirit of compassion. Dr. Boykin, how important is that to have that nurturing, and also to let young people know that we care?
Obviously, it's extremely important, and the younger that we can get the child, the easier it is to kind of mold them, especially, you know, raising their self-esteem and their confidence. I'm huge on telling parents that you know your child better than anybody else, so you need to be that advocate. And if you can't speak on behalf of the child or not sure how to do it, or I've spoken to schools, I've done virtual meetings with schools, we found parent advocates. But no, it's very important that they have that, like I said, you know your child the best, and if something doesn't feel right or look right, but we want to try as best to try to have, if it's not in the school, somewhere outside where they have people who look like them, understand their experiences on some level, and can show them, like I said, this is what you can achieve, and not be limited to certain careers or certain goals that you can achieve whatever you want. But the earlier, the better we know that we can kind of mold them and build their confidence and self-esteem inside and outside the classrooms.
Achievement, grade, parents engaging in this child's learning experience, being engaged with the teachers, knowing the teachers, making sure that homework is complete. And I'm looking at Jackie Luke. Can Jackie, as a former administrator and also as a part of this area, talk a little bit about that part of what's happening with our young people? You know, we're living in times where there's so many influences, and Chris Latimer talked about that. Kids have iPads, cell phones, they got video games, they got all of these things that are distracting. How can parents nip some of these things in the bud, make a stand and say, you got to do your homework before you get involved with these other kinds of things that affect our child's development?
Good evening. It's a pleasure just to sit and listen. And I look at Dr. Brown, who was I was her house administrator, and I knew her when she was a little girl at Union, Dr. Boykins through Union, and then White Plains High, and then Professor Simmons. At some point, we both worked in Mount Vernon together, and then I was one of your daughter's administrator, and Pastor Trollinger, I just know. So just to jump on kind of what everyone else said, I'm a mom, I'm a grandmom. I've been retired now for 9 years. I did 36 and a half years. I did 19 in Mount Vernon, and some others somewhere else, and 13 in Mount Vernon, in White Plains. And what I found when I came to White Plains, my daughter was in a private school that I was paying mega bucks for. And I was just so impressed with the education that I saw going on at White Plains High School. I took her out, and thank God for professional courtesy. And the Youth Bureau, their offices, I know they were, I don't know what it is now, were in the high school. But I always tell parents what they need to do. And I tell elementary parents, you should meet your child teacher definitely before school starts. And the way to do that is to go to school the week before school open, because in every elementary school, a teacher is going to be doing the bulletin board. Okay, they're going to be there, and you let them know who you are. da da da, my child is this, here are my numbers, yeah. The upper level, the same thing. You don't have to be at every PTA meeting, but you need to be at the important ones. Okay, and you need to, like I hear everyone else said, you set goals for the kids. And a lot of time in school, and I can use secondary ed, sports is a big thing. And no offense to any of you who are coaches, what I have experienced in my 30-some years, that coaches want kids to play. And we do a little battle with the parent, a big battle, because there's students that are failing 4 subjects, failing 1, failing 2, and the parent want them to play because everyone thinks that they're going to get a scholarship and they're going to play in the professionally.
Yeah.
So it becomes a battle. You don't let anyone tell you, like I've had parents say, well, why don't you all take him off the team? Well, there's the politics of that, but it's real easy for you to say to the coach and to the kid, okay, he's turning in his uniform, he's not playing. So it's very important that we're all on the same page. And like I said, make yourself known. You don't have to be at every meeting, but you need to be there because major decisions are being made. Again, I grew up in South Carolina. I went to a segregated school to 10th grade, and then I moved to New York and was in total shock. There was something to be said because everyone in that school looked like me. Everyone. Okay. They went to the church, whatever. Everyone, there's something to be said about that. And when I started at White Plains High School, I think there were 2 female African-American administrators and 1 male. And what the battle we had to do behind closed doors is just unreal. It was indeed a battle. So, there's still people there, but you have to get your kids connected, know their teachers, know their guidance counselor before something happens. So when you call, that guidance counselor is going to pick up your call and they're going to answer your email. And that is very important. And if they don't, then you need to, if you have to go to the youth bureau to get someone to advocate for you, or you need to go to your pastor or whatever, or you have a relationship with the teacher, you need to do that. Because it's like I think Mr. Frank said about, or someone said about the squeaky wheel being oiled. So everyone knows that parent who is on the case. Mm-hmm. And I know in Alana's case, in Nicole's case of Dr. Borg, I know it just was not, as well as Mr. Simmons, when, like I said, one of your daughters, it's serious business. It is serious business. And my daughter, graduated from White Plains High School. And then I told her she was going to a HBCU. So I told her. So she's a Howard alum. She's a school psychologist in DC Public School. And it had to do with the whole village. At the time we were in Union Baptist Church, and she was in Saturday school, which was Sunday school then. She was at the center. She was connected to stuff in White Plains, even though we lived in Greenburgh. So I know. And I remember one day when she learned how to drive and she was out for lunch, and Coach Mayfield from the high school, the basketball coach, walked all the way from the gym to my office. And anyone who knows White Plains, that's kind of a trek from the gym to North House. And he just came in my office and he said, I saw a black Jeep Cherokee speeding down North Street. I said, okay, say no more. So that's all I needed. Could not wait to get a hold to my daughter. And her whole thing, well, who told you? Don't worry about who told me. Okay, and that's what we need to do. We need to tell parents when we're seeing things that's not right. And I do it, well, not now, but I used to. If I saw kids speeding on a Saturday, I just would wait till Monday and I called the parent and I said, I'm not talking to you as an administrator. I'm talking to you as one parent as to another. Your kid was in the car driving with 4 other kids speeding. So we need to do it. We need to look out for other kids. not just your child. And that's the only way it's going to work. That's the only way it's going to work. That's how it worked back in the South. That's how it worked. And we need to get back to that. And that's basically it. I do believe, as I think Ms. Archer said, I used to be on that committee, but I got off the committee because I know the politics behind African-American males being hired in the District of White Plains. I don't encourage any African-American male to apply for an administrative position in the District of White Plains. They are kept for a year or two, and then all of a sudden, somehow they're not going to get tenure. So that's it.
I would say, Jackie, if our African-American men are hired, we need to support them, right? Because if we don't,
definitely. But you know what? Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I would say that we need to support our teachers. We need to support our parents. And you were talking about the issue of accountability. I was going to go to go ahead, Oren.
I have to run soon, but I just wanted to say this, right? Because I'm hearing a lot of the conversations on, and I'm an outsider, so again, hearing the conversations around the education system, from lack of representation and or educators, and sometimes failures of the system. But I want to make sure that we kind of just speak to the parents, right? Which was the purpose of this forum here. And I want to just say to the parents, right? I'm going to challenge you. All right, let me even take it back. I remember when I was asking my son, when people come in to speak to you guys about careers, what is it that makes you get excited? And he said, it's just three things, right? How much money you make, how much fun is the job, and how long it takes to get there. And he's only 14, not 14, but 13, and he's in 7th grade. But he simplified it to those three things. And I guarantee you, every parent wants to make sure that their child's future is better than theirs. That's the philosophy of every parent. So what I'm going to say to you as parents out there, right? As you're now looking at your sons or daughters or loved ones, right? You need to figure out, when they're going to school every day to get an education, what is that path? What is the school doing? Or how are you challenging the school to make sure that their futures are set, that that child knows where they're going, so that how much money they'll be making, how much fun is the job, and how long it takes to get there, right? Because the end goal of the education is, yes, to be smarter, but the main goal is that they'll be employable and be able to work. And I just want to make sure that the parents are starting to think on that level. Every day that you're sending your child to school, yes, to get an education and get some knowledge here, but what is the end goal at the end of it all? And that's the conversation I love parents to start to challenge the school systems and everything for the end goal of their young one, so they can have a better future. All right, so that's all I have to say. I have to run, unfortunately, but I just want to just leave with that.
Well, Oren, I'm going to say this is only part one. We're going to do this in the fall again. We're going to bring everyone back, because this is so important to all of us. And we have to find a way to engage with each other, engage with the community, engage with the school. Ms. B, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I'm sorry, I do. So, and my whole thing is, I didn't know about this meeting until I went on Post Road's little weekly news. It wasn't publicized. So I think next time we have to do a better job in letting parents know what's going on, because a lot of parents don't know. So if I didn't look at that thing, that the up and coming announcements that were going on for Post Road, I would have never known about this forum. So we have to reach out and do a better job, and let the school do a better job in contacting parents of color to let them know that this is taking place.
Okay, point well taken. Oren?
And Ms. B, thank you, right? Because again, it's input like that from the parents that's going to make the difference in all of this, right? It's again, the parents taking ownership and such, right? And us letting you know as well, right? So what are the other methods that can be used to get the information out, right? What are the methodology, but also really it's about you now, because you're the voice that controls what happens in your household. So it's important now that you're going to steer that. So I'm glad that you're bringing this up.
Yes,
because,
and as I said, I worked White Plains School. It's almost 20 years. I've been with White Plains School District, so I've seen the changes that have been taking place, and we have to do better. Like something has to give.
Right. We
have to leave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Oren. We have 10 minutes left. We want to use these 10 minutes, and I know that there are other parents out there who have something to say. I want to just move the needle to talk about the issue of our young boys, right? We have a lot of young boys who are being raised by mothers, right? And we know that mentoring is so important to the development of all of our children, especially young boys. Reverend Trollinger talked about his relationship with boys, and Chris has sons, and he's been engaged with football with our young boys. And you all may or may not know that we have several mentoring programs here at the Youth Bureau. How can we do better with our young men? What do we need to do with our young men? How can Damon Yizer, I see you there. I know you've been working historically with young boys and others. What can we do to kind of change the paradigm of our young men? Because one, we kind of we said earlier, we push our young boys into sports at the hurt of their academics. And as mothers and fathers, we need to reclaim our young boys and say, yes, you can play sports, but you got to get your homework done, right? There's tutoring and mentoring at the Youth Bureau. There is employment, there's counseling. There's a ton of programs. How do we engage our mothers to make sure that we're all providing these wraparound services to our children and to our young boys? Brother Yizer.
First of all, thank you for getting me on. You know how I am. Professor Simmons, Reverend Trollinger, we're about the same age. So, you know, I'm not the baby in the group. I know Chris from the days of the Wolverines, okay? Ms. Brown, because her father, famous Larry Brown, and Miss Nicole Boykin, you know. But it's kind of tough. You know, I go through the back way of where you try to get the men involved. I mean, mothers have always been involved when it comes to our children, especially our young Black males. You know, here about 15, maybe I have to say 18 years ago, we started a group in Greenburgh, which stretched across White Plains, called FACT, Father and Children Together. You know, when we got fathers, you know, involved, where that we're going to make sure that we have a very important edge in our children's lives. And if you're not the father, you know, like you do with the grandfathers, we got uncles, brothers, anybody who's old enough, you know, to be a mentor, to make sure that we are, because as the young men get older, okay, yeah, it's nice to have, you know, mom around, but they need to hear that man's voice, and a man who's also doing something. You know, I mean, doing something, just being successful in what you do. You know, everybody doesn't have to be a doctor, a lawyer, you know, that stuff. You can be a barbershop person, you know, you could be a sanitation worker, but a lot of it comes from what we have to do as men, okay, to make sure. I'm an advocate mostly, I should tell a lot of brothers. I says, you want to see change in the school district? When they have a board meeting, get about 10 strong Black men, just show up at the board meeting. If they show up at the board meeting, okay, whatever agenda, you know, mothers have been pushing or everybody, watch all of a sudden the school take a little different approach because men are involved. And these are men, you know, who are fathers or men who are very, you know, engaged in our children's education, especially our young Black males. You know, I have a daughter and I have a son. You know, it's like day and night. You know, my daughter, her path is what she wants to do. My son, sometimes I have to push him, but I push him to his level because, you know, like you said before, we look at it as Black males, athletics, you know, some entertainment, whatever it is. I just told my son, hey, do the best you can, you know, whatever you do and how you do, and just be respectful. And when you have all these things going on, I mean, it takes, you know, us, you know, I know what Reverend Trollinger does. I know what Donnie does because my son was at Westchester. I know what Chris is doing. You know, the great thing I had when I worked in the school district was that I had accessibility. I lived where I worked. And that's a very important thing because when you sit back, you get to know everybody. You know, the same children that were going to school, I lived in the neighborhood. I lived right in Fairview. You know, I go to Union Baptist Church. I go to the local Acme, you know, food market. I see the kids on the street, the community center. And as my main objective was to get to know them, know exactly what's up, because they're all different. As being as administrator in a high school, even though I was the dean, I've still been the dean of discipline. I was very proactive. I tried to know all the students. It wasn't about waiting until you get into trouble, then I get a chance to know you. No, I wanted to know something about you. And the children knew that and they respected that. So when they did come to my office, the conversation wasn't about what you did wrong. It's more about how can we make this right so that you don't make the same mistake twice. So, when you talk about the Black males, I just think it's more of involvement of us as males, trying to get either the fathers or somebody involved with them.
Brother Yiza, thank you. We're going to close and we're going to have last comments from each panelist. But before I call on them, I just want to give a shout out to County Board Legislator Chairman Benjamin Borkin. I just wanted to thank him for being a part of this conversation. He's former White Plains School Board, Common Council, Youth Board Chair, and now he's the Chair of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. Chairman Borkin, is there anything you want to add in this conversation?
No, I just think, as I put it in the chat, I want to thank all the panelists. I think a great job, and all the participants that made comments, and I look forward to the next sessions that's going to take place. And we do have to meet our youth where they are and work to move them to a better place or a different place. But that's really the key, So I think this was very informative, and look forward to the next session.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Borkin. I want to ask each panelist to have brief closing words. All right, brief. I'm going to start with Dr. Borkin. Any last minute comments, Dr. Borkin?
Like I said, I just want to obviously thank you for putting this together, and really the parents, and just said continue to do what you're doing. I know it's a struggle, but there are supports and there are people who can help you along the way. You just ask and you shall receive, and you can find the help there. So, and do it for yourselves and do it for your children. But thank you, Mr. Williams, for putting this together.
Thank you, Dr. Borkin. Professor Simmons, any last comments?
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, just want to thank everyone for coming out. This is a real good feel event. And I think if we keep something like this going, change will take place. It will. So keep the faith, and hopefully we'll see you on the next round.
Thank you, Professor Simmons. Reverend Trollinger, any last minute comments?
What rings in my head as everybody was talking is we have to connect the dots. My dad was an excellent painter. He was an excellent painter because back in the old days where Professor Simmons and I come from, they used to paint pictures based upon numbers. The formula is there. We just gotta paint where the paint is supposed to be. And the last thing in regards to young men, exposure is everything. If you open up and they see things that are different, they'll want to become it. I became who I am at Woodlands High School because of a 8th grade teacher gave us a contest to go to the United Nations. They told us to explore what made up the United Nations. Before I was a Dr. King fan, before I was a Malcolm X fan, before I was a Marcus Garvey fan, I found somebody by the name of Ralph Bunche, who was the Undersecretary of the United Nations, whose mother washed white people's houses, washed white people's clothes, cleaned their houses, so that he could be the first African-American to graduate from UCLA, and his last point of contact for world justice was at the United Nations. And when I knew that a Black man could be the Undersecretary of the United Nations, it told me every door was open and I was able to go. And I had adult men that made sure that I went to a HBU. So they did that circle, connect the dots, open up exposure, young men will see themselves in a whole brand new light.
Thank you, Reverend Trollinger. Dr. Brown.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for this and including me as a panelist. Reverend, to your point, staying connected is extremely important. And I think that what stands out for me, just listening to everyone tonight, building alliances and maintaining those alliances between the community, families, the parents and the children, I think really will go a long way in strategizing how to get their involvement and motivate them to utilize the supports and resources that are available. So I think that's something that we ought to keep at the forefront, just building those alliances and maintaining those alliances.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And also, Chris, you're going to close this out. Any last minute comments? You're muted, Chris.
All right, I got it.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Williams and esteemed panelists, for being here. I think this is very important. Probably the last thing I'd like to leave with is a lot of times we make this a lot more difficult than it's supposed to be. And just like Pastor Charles just said, if one is what you paint red, then you paint every one red. And the picture will come to fruition. So if I may, just kind of one tip that I give when I speak to parents, young parents, is the importance of this, the calendar on your phone, right? Because, organization is everything. And life is being thrown at us right now, and it's pretty crazy, but every one of these has a calendar on it. And you could simply give yourself 1 hour on Wednesday and 1 hour on Monday to focus on your child and schedule that hour in your phone. And no matter what's happening, no matter what girlfriend you're on the phone with, no matter what game you're watching, you stop. And in the first 30 minutes of that hour, you write down everything you need to know about your kid or issues that you think they might have. And in the last 30 minutes, you try to solve it. And I think if you do that just for 2 hours, and 2 hours is nothing, you could get a ton of things done. I think the problem with a lot of parents now is that there's so much going on, and then inclusive of COVID as well, that everything is blurring and mashing together. And it's like this big smoothie of problems and good things and whatever. And you just kind of need those 2 hours a week where you just stop and get what you need to get done for your child. That's all I got.
Let me just give a big shout out to all of our panelists for being here, and all of you for showing up. We have great work to do, but I know I just love the African proverb which says that working together, the ants ate the elephant. And so that stays in my heart, because I know that we can move the needle. And I'm also reminded of Dr. Wangari Maathai. She got the Nobel Peace Prize for her work in Kenya with saving the forest. And she saying to each of us to do what you can, do something. So I want to just encourage all of us to stay strong, to work hard, to be persistent, and we're gonna do better. We're gonna help our young people achieve, because if we don't do it, then who else will? Again, thank all of you. Thanks Chairman Boykin, the mayor, and Justin. Thanks all of you. And we're gonna do this again in the fall. You all be well. And if you are looking for programs and services, we got a ton of programs for the summer. Math camp and STEM camp and camps and employment and SAT prep. We got just a lot of things going on, but you got to go get it, and we're here for you. We want to make sure that people engage us. Michael Coxon, I saw your hand. Did you have something to say, Michael? No, I guess not. Anyway.
No, I'm good. Mr. Frank Williams. I mean, it's been a very enlightening session for me. I have a 14-year-old son, and everything that the panel has spoke about, it really touched me, because I know when I was coming up, I grew up in the Bronx. I had the PAL. I used to go to the PAL all the time. And then when I drifted away from the PAL, then that's when all my problems came and everything. But being in White Plains, being connected to Challenger, Reverend Challenger, Frank Williams, Dr. Fazine, and many others, okay, I seen the dedication that each one of y'all have for our youth and for our community. Even when I was working with Dr. Bostic in Yonkers, I used to see Reverend Challenger come with a group of boys. And, you know, it was always a good feeling, you know, it was always motivational. And I really appreciate that. And I'm glad I associate myself with the individuals that I just mentioned. And also Professor Simmons, my son go to Saturday Academy. His speeches that he gives to the boys at Saturday Academy is also very touching. I'm just thankful that I got this information to be on.
Thank you, Michael. And I know Easy, I saw the note that you have an announcement. You want to just take a minute and give an update about any of the upcoming things that that you guys are working on?
Say that again?
Yeah, Frank, I just put the information in the chat that the African American Diversity Committee is having a community forum next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Anyone interested in joining us, we have our work cut out for us. Please email me and I'll send the link to you. We've sent out 2 emails to community organizations and churches in the area for the last month or so, and we're definitely going forward with the meeting on Tuesday. So we hope to see as many as we possibly can there. Thank you very much. Been a very interesting forum.
Please show up and support. Let's all be engaged in this work. Thank you so much and have a good night and be safe and be careful. God bless.
God bless.
Hey, Nicole.